So I went back and forth for a while, kind of to figure out what I was going to talk about on this ride. I don't have a lot of time left because I was trying to do some administrative stuff. But I'm going to talk about training because I'm on my way to train officers in my high-risk vehicle encounters class, and why I'm teaching what I'm teaching. So high-risk vehicle encounters is just any time you're going to encounter a suspect from your vehicle, primarily suspects that have felony warrants, felony stops, anything like that, or suspicious person with a weapon, stuff like that. But you could use the tactic up until a certain point for people that are just suspects and things that you essentially don't believe are violent. Obviously, we know they can turn violent. But how did I kind of get to where I'm at in terms of this class and some in my other course and other courses that will be coming is looking at, why are officers being killed? What are the problems? And so how do we kind of solve these problems? And, if you look at why are officers being killed most of the time with their gun in their holster before they fire a round, well, it's because cops are pretty terrible at identifying and mitigating threats. The officers in the New York video I posted where they're on the stairwell, great example. That's a problem. The other problem is officers not having a process for how they work around vehicles and encounter these situations, because in all of the videos that I play in my class, and all the videos usually body camera wise, from a vehicle when officers are encountering bad guys and they need to engage from their vehicle, etc., they're not making the best decisions. They don't have a process for how they get to marksmanship, and therefore it's making marksmanship more difficult, right? So it's very similar to those cops at NYPD at the stairs, like being surprised and then having to come out of the holster, and at that point you're just pointing the gun and shooting, which you can get away with sometimes, but it's not a guarantee. Same thing inside vehicles. Cops are getting involved in these confrontations. They didn't set themselves up properly. They don't have a process for how they get out of the car, how they provide adequate lethal coverage as soon as practical, and therefore when it comes to marksmanship, it's usually and then your marksmanship isn't going to be any good at that point. So that's how I've come to the high-risk vehicle encounters class, and because it was a tactic that I was using for several years, and we were very successful doing it and developed it that way, learned a lot of things, and that's how we got to the curriculum that I'm teaching, high-risk vehicle encounters. So problems cops are having and trying to solve them, identifying and mitigating threats, vehicles, and then the marksmanship piece, which is exploiting accuracy, a class that I also teach, which is teaching officers how to be accountable for their marksmanship under stress. And that course is a simunition course where officers are exposed to situations, and after they get exposed, there's a lot of conversation that happens, and I basically essentially teach them how to control their emotions so that they don't respond with emotional gunfire, because what we've seen is that just because you can perform on the range in a controlled environment doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to translate over to real life engagements. I've had a number of officers come through the class, officers that can shoot, officers that I know personally, and they don't, they're doing just fine on the range, exceeding the minimum police standard by far, and what ends up happening is usually what happens in real life engagements. Marksmanship kind of goes to hell, and then that's a problem, because if we're missing, that could have real implications. So those are the two problems right now that I'm focused on. Another problem that cops have is thinking that every foot chase is I'm going to tackle this person chase. And what happens when cops start thinking gunfight, they're getting too close to the bad guy, they're trying to grab onto them, bad guy is shooting them, and again, what's happening to our marksmanship? So if I'm coming out of my holster after being shot at, your adrenaline's going to be through the roof, you're going to have tunnel vision, and you're just going to make marksmanship that much more difficult to get to. So another class that I'm kind of working on is going to be a foot pursuit class, which is probably going to be 2 days, and it's going to require live fire and simunition, because simunition is the best thing that you can do to get as close as possible to the real thing. I'm about to arrive over here. catch you guys later.